Hi everyone, welcome to yet another video from Data Stream Academy. Today we are going to talk about problem solving. So we have talked about what is AI, how you can be a how we can use AI and how we can be a good team player. This is what we covered in day 1 and day 2. And today we'll talk about problem solving. I think if you are an engineer, we all go through different problems, right? But how we tactically look at a problem, what are the steps we follow to solve the problem better, how we make sure that the problems are solved in a most efficient way, right? So that is what we are going to talk about in today's video. So let me talk about the high level 4 points and then we deep dive into the detailed step as we usually do in other videos, right? One is like you have to clearly define what is the problem and what solution you are looking for, right? And think in structured step, right? Because the problem which we all run into when you solve a problem is like we don't follow a structured step and we often lost in middle and we have no idea what we have completed, what we supposed to do, and like what we have accomplished. Because when it is a problem, you go through different steps, you reach into some conclusion at some point, then you fail, right? It's a continuous step. So if you don't follow a structured approach to tackle this solution, you will stuck at some point. So that is why structured steps matters. And always consider multiple solution because you will never know when a solution fail. And if when you consider multiple solution, the benefit is like you will always be able to compare between the solutions and provide the best to the user, right? And focus on long term impact, because the most common issues which I have observed is like when we see a problem, people tend to solve that particular piece of it. But our goal is not that, right? We should always create a solution that is long term so that like people can make use of this, like make use of this benefit for a longer run, right? So let us go deep dive into different points on like what are these areas in deep. So the first point, yes, which we have already covered, define the problem. As I said, I am reiterating, define what is the problem. And if somebody is coming to you with a problem, right, the same thing, try to understand what it is and create a definition. Okay, this is the issue which they are facing, that you should be able to explain or like clarify that in one line. Okay, this is the problem people are facing. Then if you can clearly explain the problem, then you can clearly like you can provide the solution. That is how we look at. So that is why like understanding or defining the problem clearly matters. Separate symptoms from the root cause. So what is symptoms, what is root cause, right? So root cause, where if you are trying to solve a problem for a longer run or like the best solution, we should always find for root cause, right? So if it is a bigger solution, you will have different root causes. You might only be, when you look just from outside, you'll only be symptoms. Okay, this might be the reason why it is. But what caused that particular symptom matters. So that is where you have to understand the root cause. So that is what we call it like root cause analysis, right? When you see a problem, right? We talk about root cause analysis, right? So you got to understand. So this is where like everything which you do, I would say from this step onwards, like when you are going to do a problem solving, either write down or draw, so that like you have to, because when you take a 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour session, right, to understand a problem, we will keep adding step, we will reach into some conclusions, we change from there. So we always miss at some point. So it is very important for all of us to write down and mark it. So which I usually tell my team is like, when you see a problem, write down what is that problem and list down what might be the cause and eliminate the cause, right? Like if you got like 10 reason for it, test the first reason. Is it working? Like is it causing the problem? No, mark it. So that like when at any point when you lose, you know that you have already completed these many steps. So that is why write it down is always important. And it also like when you get distracted or when you take a break in between, I don't want you to lose like what you have accomplished so far, right? So write down, so that like this also help you to kind of show the progress. Maybe some of the problem takes days, right? So when somebody asks for a status at the end of the day, this write down will help you to say, okay, this is what the problem is. Like, I know, like, this might be the 10 causes, it might 10 reasons it might cause, and like I started troubleshooting and I reached in the first fifth point, and I identified or eliminate the reason for all four, right? So you would be able to articulate that story very clearly if you have written these points in detailed way. And when the other problem is like when people see so complex problem, right, we all get stuck and we all feel like, okay, it's so complex, it is not something which I could do, right? So but everything start with smaller step, right? When the motivation speaker says that, okay, you have to reach in your 1,000 step, you should start like keeping your first steps. So this is what, like, when you get a bigger problem, try understanding, okay, how I can like convert that into multiple modules, right? Recently I was talking about a performance issue in my team, and I told them, okay, segregate that into multiple areas. Like, do you have modules? Let us segregate that into multiple modules, and let us pick one module, so that like when we fix that performance improvement issue in that module, yes, we have like 5 6 modules, but I can at least say that, okay, we have completed that in single module. Maybe this module can be very big, right? So in that module, take like, maybe you are dealing with 50 tables. Take like some group of tables. Maybe take one table. Is it performing well? Document it. Yes. So I don't have anything to do there. Take the second table. So now you had a very big vast project which is dealing with hundreds of tables and like thousands of transformations, but you narrow down that into a smaller part and you fix it. So now, like, fixing one table's performance issue seems very simple for you, and you can do that, and you can put your 100 percentage, go through different scenarios and fix it. So that is how you have to deal with the complex problems. Yes, all the problems might look complex for you, but when you cut down into smaller part, you would be able to deal with that easily. Use data, not assumptions. So it all related to the documentation which I am referring to, right? So when we see some of these problems, right, maybe when, like, I'll take the same example as performance improvement thing. Some people will blindly say, okay, your ETL is causing issue, or your server configuration is low, right? All these things, assumptions might take you, and some of you might just believe that assumption and throw that assumption in a meeting, right? But do you have a data to substantiate that, right? Always, like, we being data engineers, right, we have to believe in data, and data is something which can give you the clear information. So if you are going to do some kind of improvement or whatever, right, look for the data points. And if somebody is coming back and saying that, okay, I know that this might be the reason, you can always ask them, okay, do you have a data? Do you have some query which you ran and show that, okay, this area is taking time, or maybe this table is the reason for your performance bottleneck, or if the server configuration is hitting, is the server is taking 100, like utilizing 100 percentage when this query is running, and what is causing this to be like improve, like overutilized during that period, right? Does the index help, right? These questions, right, you ask that question, document that answer. That is how I solve my problems, right? I understand the problem, I cut down it into smaller pieces, then I pick one piece and see, ask questions, okay, why, what would be the probability that this causes, right? Is this configuration, so whatever, right, you list all that. Maybe some of them might super dump, but you still document that, because when somebody come back and ask you, right, that is how I tell my team, right? So you did something, there is, yes, you can say that, okay, I did a unit testing and it went well, right? It may have went well, but tomorrow if that fails, people will ask, okay, did you do any unit test? If you didn't have a documentation, if you do not have a data to prove that, okay, you did it, like, nobody is going to believe you, and nobody need to believe you, because you didn't provided that reference data. That is why when you do a problem solving, whatever you do, right, documentation is key. It is not necessary you have to follow some standards, you have to write like 100 page of document, no, but your core, right? So what you are testing, what is your result, does that help? All these questions should be answered. Clear? So next is like a perspective, right? Some people might say, So this might be the cause, that might be the cause. Take all input. It's not necessary you have to reject some of the input because like that person is from different background or that person does not have. Take those perspective and try to understand, does that perspective work, right? And create your data points. Okay, if this could be the reason, this is the areas which I have to test it. Test that area, eliminate that perspective, so that like you know that when you provide a result, you have eliminated all the result and zero down to one scenario, so that like next time the other scenarios will not be a bottleneck for you, right? If you take performance improvement, or like if you see a particular issue which you're running into, right? So this perspective, so just always when you're going to solve a problem, keep this in mind. I'm purely talking about the technical perspective, but keep this in mind. Just be open minded, take everything, listen to the people, like as I said in the previous day too, on the team player thing. Like just be open minded, accommodate everybody, be respectful, listen to everyone. And if you already have an answer, with respect, tell them this might be the reason I believe it doesn't work, because it cannot be the reason because I already have the substantiating data, right? So like that you can eliminate. That is why when you have to consider all the perspective, and you have to eliminate and zero down to the right perspective and solve the problem. Validate the solution with impact, not effort. You might take 10 days to solve a problem, or maybe you might take a minute to solve the problem. But what impact it create matters, not the effort, right? You cannot keep a slow running query because you took 10 days to write the query, right? That can never be a reason. You have to see what is the most efficient way to solve this problem, what is the most efficient solution it is providing. So at the end of the day, it is not the effort, right? How well, right? That is where this, when I read this, solution matters not effort, or the impact matters not effort, right? I always think about the same era, right? Now you have AI to solve most of the problem. If somebody took like setback and say that okay, I don't use AI and I just wanted to put my effort and write the query, but if you can get the same query most efficient way using AI, you should always use AI and review that, right? Validate that solution and create the impact. So here it is not the effort, it is not the time, right? It is the impact. You are able to make a bigger impact in a shorter span, right? So make sure that you are providing an impactful solution, and more considerating is like how well this accommodate this situation, will this cover all the perspective, and do you have the substantiating data to solve this problem. These are the areas which you have to consider. And learn from failures and iterate. So when you're trying to solve a problem, you either end up with a failure or you end up with a success. It's like very high chances you might fail. I'll take the same example which I was talking about, the performance improvement story in my team, right? I told this to my team, like you are cutting down that into smaller pieces, and you're taking a piece. You end up telling me that, coming back and saying that, Samit, I have considered all the scenarios I marked and there is nothing to improve, right? That means that can be considered as a failure. The query is taking 2 minutes and it end up taking 2 minutes after like 3-4 days of research, right? So what this failure is teaching you, right? The failure is telling you that, okay, I did all these scenarios and tomorrow come back and say that this query is running slow. You can say that okay, all these scenarios are tested, do you have another perspective to share with me? I can test that. So you are open ended, right? You are ready to welcome, because at the end of the day we all are in the same goal, that we wanted to improve the performance of this code, right? So that is why when you fail, you are not really failing, you are learning that okay, this particular steps is not helping you to improve the performance of the query in this scenario. So you're learning something new, right? Then that failure is marked, then you're taking the another scenario, you're testing it, you fail again. So when you fail and you cover all the scenarios, you know that okay, this query is perfectly well, and if you wanted to improve the performance of this query, there is nothing which you could do it on the query side. So that is the perspective you have to take. Maybe it is not necessary you end up succeeding everywhere, but your failure is the elimination of perspective, right? If all the scenarios are not covered in your particular piece of code, then you fail, and you take a better approach to solve it. So that is expected. That is why like we may not be able to give a proper estimation of problem solving. When you run into issue, we will never be able to give an estimate. So what do you do on that estimation piece, right? Just let me cover that without taking much time. So when you know that, like we will not be able to say how much time it might take to solve the problem, but on the other end, on the receiving end, people always wanted to see the estimations, right? So the best way which you can do, tell them what you know and how much time you take on what you know. And you can also say like what you're targeting to complete rest of the piece based on your assumptions, and state it very clearly, like this particular piece of time, this one day which I am talking about, purely assumption, it can complete in 1 hour, it can take 2 days, I don't know, but I'll keep you posted. Some of this so this more like an iterative development model, right? You keep updating the people at the receiving and tell them how you're progressing. As either it's positive or negative, you update them and tell them that this is what I am going to do, this is what I have completed, this is the additional step I learned from this which I am implementing, right? So it is more of like communication and transparency, how well you are defining this problem, how well you are explaining the solutions which you are looking at, right? All this matters. So again, the last point is like focus on the long-term fixes, not quick patches. The same point, right? When you provide a solution, people should look at it and say, okay, this is going to work on all other scenarios. You shouldn't be fixing one area which is going to be impacting on the other side later. So that shouldn't be the fix which you would look at. But in some cases, it might need like you have to give the quick patches, right? So you being a senior or a lead, how do you tackle the scenario? Be transparent, right? It's as simple as that. Say that, okay, your system is not working. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give a query that fix your problem for today, but this is going to come in your data load in next week as well. So I have a long-term fix that's going to take me 3 days to do it, but I'm giving you a quick fix which you can run it next 2 times. So by the time my long-term fix would be ready and I can deliver it to you. So that like you are not giving them a quick patch and telling that, okay, this is the solution. No, you should always be thinking when you are being a problem solver, you should always be thinking, and you should always be uh, having a hunger to give the best, right? Because this solution what you provide, the point which you give to the users, the solution is what speak about you tomorrow. Okay, if you go to that person is going to give me the best solution, or this person is going to give me just patches, so better we need to engage somebody. So your responses, your solutions speak about the quality of your deliverable, right? To be the best, always see that, understand the problem, give them the best solution, and be transparent, be communicating, and guide your team in the best way to motivate them and solve the problem. There is no complex problem. It is all started with a smaller solution and it become bigger. So when it is a complex problem, you have to cut it down and get the smaller part and solve it, right? And I'll just conclude this video with this quote which is written at the bottom. Like solving the wrong problem perfectly is still a failure. That means like if you're not identifying what is the real problem, that's the first statement, right? If you're not able to identify what is the clear problem people are facing, and if you're trying to solve a problem which you think it's a problem, it's not it's totally a disaster or a failure, because you should understand what is the actual problem, then you should solve the problem. I know like I may have used the problem word 100 times, but hope like I was able to clearly articulate the perspective of myself and the experience which I am taking through how I am solving the problem. Thank you for watching. Please do share your comments, thoughts on like how you solve the problem. If you wanted to add more points on top of it, feel free to add the comment. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.